Alrighty, guys, we are back with top 8, and we have GP, Las Vegas champion, Andrew Calderon, versus James Campbell from KTM, playing Shoe Control versus SS3 Blue-Green Control. This is a pretty good matchup. We have two very high-profile players here in a very stacked top 8. I don't even have the top 8 brackets with me, but we had some pretty big contenders on here.
Yeah, a lot of the names that made it for the release event into the top 8 are in this top 8 as well, proving they're very consistent players. One of them, obviously, Andrew Calderon, and he's taking a very interesting approach to what is essentially mono blue deck, but with a different awakening mechanic and slightly different bombs. And in this case, he's playing 4-drop bombs instead of 5-drop and 6-drops, and he's also awakening through the use of 1-drop Gohan instead of I gotta check his deck list if it's also he's playing Tapion, but right now using 1-drop Gohan is his awakening mechanic this game. So definitely a different approach from what other players are doing. Other players really favor the consistency of just almost all of their cards being blue, but Andrew said, no, I don't really mind splashing a secondary color because it gives him access to some of the most powerful cards in the 4-mana slot. One of them, crucially, being Annalisa.
Combo Killer Annalisa, very good card from Colossal Warfare.
When it comes on board, we'll talk about it some more, but that card is an absolute powerhouse, and hopefully it demonstrates its power in this game here. But James Campbell not giving Andrew much time to develop those 4-drops. We're seeing him play extremely aggressive in these early turns of the game, much like our previous round. Just fluting back Gohans, playing Vegeta on turn 4, doing the exact same play that we saw last round. Vegeta on turn 4, untapping an energy, playing the Trunks, searching his deck, in this case for a Trunks Vanilla instead of the Shoe, but did the same card basically. And he's about to apply a massive amount of pressure to Andrew this turn, who, if I'm not mistaken, he doesn't have a blue open, so he doesn't have access to Sensobeat. So these cards are going to take their toll. Andrew's going to have to discard a lot or just simply go down to a low life total because of this onslaught. And again, the Shoe Control version of the deck just showing its dominance in the early game, getting an upper hand in mirror match-esque type of matchups. Obviously, Andrew playing the green splash here. So, and again, a lot of the same rules as last round apply for those of you who weren't here. It's basically about board control and securing card advantage through number of attacks. So essentially, you try to clear your opponent's board as much as possible and use flutes to defend your own resources. And we saw there James getting aggressive, going for the leader, leaving Gohan on board. So if Andrew has a flute, he can definitely flute that back and have a defensive option. But I think he managed really quickly there, and I believe his play for this turn is going to be
Kami's Power Piccolo, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So Kami's Power Piccolo, definitely the other reason he plays the green splash. It's a removal spell that keeps removing. It removes a card every single turn through its active main ability, and it's a barrier card, so it's extremely difficult to get off the board. And you see Andrew here forcing James to play down his Gohans, and then immediately after playing the Gohans, he's going to use the Piccolo that we were just talking about, attack one of the Gohans, probably kill the other with the effect, and in the next turn or two, if that Piccolo stays alive and he gets to develop yet another Piccolo, and I suspect he's going to because his hand is quite defensive right now with a bunch of negates, he's going to take swift advantage of the board. It's just so difficult to beat that Piccolo in a board-centric, mirror match, because every single turn, like I said, if he's alive, he's gonna kill a guy. It doesn't matter who it is. So this is the key turn here. Can James Campbell produce a Beerus, for example, something that will gain him significant amounts of advantage moving forward, or is it gonna be the Piccolo show from next turn forward? So That's what we want to see. And I suspect the reason why Andrew is letting his Gohan die is mostly because the only other card that can get attacked this turn is the Piccolo, and he has a Sensu Bean for his leader. So yeah, so right there, allowing the creature to die, essentially making it so that he has, pseudo card advantage through that play. And the only things that can possibly, harass the Piccolo in this turn, like this Virus is coming down right now, is gonna get negated. So this Virus is going to take advantage. It is probably going to hit a Scientist Fu that could have otherwise been played next turn, or maybe Andrew decides to discard something else. But from this point forward, the Piccolo is going to kill the Beerus. The second Piccolo is going to kill another Gohan. So it might seem like Jace Campbell is ahead for now because he is the one being the aggressor, has board control right now. But definitely, if something doesn't change, Andrew might take advantage of this game. He just has to get through this one attack. And like we saw, Beerus just causes a headache for, all opponents. Like, whenever he goes sideways, it's just very difficult to manage your resources in a way that deals with his attack and his triggered ability. So just Andrew Calderon taking a pause here because it's a very important part of the game.
Yeah, Scientist Fu is very important here, but he's going to have to go and send that card to the drop area for the Beerus ability. Now comes the combos, and he's going to go and combo out of that with a Piccolo, thanks to the Sensu being on the leader. So interesting to see James. James can't put pressure on the Kami's Power Piccolo. One, because it is a 20k. Two, Beerus has to attack a leader for the ability.
He's gonna try to go for it anyway, but I don't think this is gonna turn out well for James Campbell. He's gonna lose a little bit of his board presence just trying to get rid of this Piccolo. And Andrew could just simply do another Sensu Bean or start discarding cards. I don't think he cares. And yeah, that Piccolo survives the turn. And like I was saying, it might have looked good that last turn, but a second Piccolo is about to join the table here. And Andrew is just flooded with Whis coercions, and he just probably doesn't care about attacks from this point forward.
I really would have just stopped attacking if I was in James' shoes.
No, for sure.
I think that was a terrible trade-off. James had to throw a 5 for Andrew's 5. At this point, James' 5s are much more valuable than Andrew's 5s at this point. So I don't think that trade up to the Kami's Power Piccolo or even anything towards the leader, since they were both 20k, would have been smart.
It was a little unnecessary. I think he's just feeling the pressure of the Piccolo having to get removed, but at that point,
2 cards gone.
You see the immense power of those Piccolos, and from this point forward, every single turn is going to look like this. Andrew's just going to take card on card on card, and this is why it was so strange to me that James decided to invest one of the cards on his board, especially to try to get rid of one of the Piccolos. I would have thought that he would use super combos at least, just to force a lot more from Andrew, but he didn't. Now it's going to be simple in a way. He would have, for example, James would have 4 attackers this turn as opposed to only 3, and every attacker makes a big difference in situations like this because he doesn't have that many turns left to attack. And you see Andrew, he's so confident to the point where he could just go down to 1 life, and as long as he can use his negates profitably, he's in no trouble at all. So we're going to see. The game is still not over. If James has, for example, another Beerus coming down this turn, he could keep up. But I do not think that he has one in his hands, so he might just not have a big answer to these Piccolos. And one of the main reasons why Andrew Calderon has been doing so well in this event, he's undefeated right now, is because if I'm going to be playing blue mirror matches all day, if I just add the secondary color and this point of power in these Piccolos, the Annalises, if they come into play later on in this match, like, this is the reason why he's undefeated. He just has the better bombs and the better board control in these blue mirror matches. So right now he just wants to really prioritize conserving, life from here on out, because getting double struck would be a tragedy, as I honestly believe he has complete control of this game. So he wants to be a little bit careful, but his hand is just so stacked, super combos, more bombs, the like. But Andrew does have to be careful because the 15k onslaught is not stopping anytime soon from James, and at the same time, Andrew didn't have a Sensu Bean, so he's using a lot of resources to stay alive this turn.
Sensu Bean is a huge downfall for James's deck. Something that really just wants to go at life with all 15Ks as you can see. The repeated 15K can really put a straining on a deck like a control deck like Andrew's, but with Sensu Bean being a card in the format, I don't know if this is the best way to go about it.
Definitely, like the only thing that people do, as they did against Flying Nimbus, Sensu Bean acting very similar to a Flying Nimbus, I believe that they just grind out the number. There's only 4 copies. Some turns, Andrew Calderon, like that turn that just passed, didn't have a Sensu Bean, so he, James Campbell got full value out of all of his attacks. So definitely, you could be in the camp that says, I don't want to play 15K strategies like the one Jace Campbell is playing because of the existence of Flying Nimbus, Sensu Bean. But sometimes you just gotta say, oh, well, I'm just gonna, put them on better have this card or they lose. Andrew with enough advantage to not lose that turn, but he if he could produce a third Piccolo this turn, or even that Andrew 16 that he just drew, if that Andrew 16 comes down, if he feels threatened enough, he could just defend that instead and clear the remainder of James Campbell's board. But for now, just the 15Ks are dropping like flies to these Piccolos. We expected this to happen. James needs a really huge top deck from this point is what I feel is going to determine whether he can come back from this or not. He still has a 1-turn window, and
everything is gone.
There it goes. He couldn't even defend a single one of those.
And a Beerus Divine Vanquisher down for Andrew. That has to be critical towards the win, and James has to dedicate multiple cards here.
And honestly, he has 2 3-drops, and I think the rest of his hand is 1-drop cards. So this choice is extremely difficult because all he has left, he might lose his entire hand on just this one attack.
He's going to take an energy, and he's probably going to just take a 3-drop from his hand.
He might have to take this damage altogether.
No, he has to.
I don't imagine him, defending with multiple Sensu Beans.
Well, with Andrew being tapped out, it's definitely a safe key. It's a safe take.
And he's gonna untap 3 through the effect 2, and hopefully for Andrew, he's running low on resources. So I want to believe that 3 energy is enough to defend him. His life is at 2, so any double striker could seal the deal here. And we saw James only took out 1 energy, so he can still energy up to 5 and cast a Beerus, which you saw him top deck if I'm not mistaken. So there's that huge top deck that he needs, and
that might be it. I mean, Andrew does have green up though, so he does represent a full power energy. He does represent a Whis Coercion, but he's going to go with the Dimension Support Trunks, and I think that's going to help him verify if his opponent has a Sensu Bean or not. Because if his opponent does not have a Sensu Bean, it might be at least it eliminates some things that Andrew might have in his hand.
Yeah, of course. And Andrew didn't actually draw that many cards last turn. I believe he only got to see 2, so he didn't have a Sensu Bean 2 turns prior. If he didn't pick it up in this last turn cycle,
he's got Whis Coercion, and full power energy, I believe.
So right now, it'd be interesting to see if he wants to use the Gohan. Yeah, so he's gonna go with Gohan. It might give James Campbell hesitation to attack the board, but no, he's just going face. I have to imagine he's considering his options right now. But and what do you do in James Campbell's position? I don't suspect that he's attacking the Gohan to control the board. It's more just to draw a card, see his options, and then go face with the Beerus, because that's his only option left.
It seems pretty odd for the Goten that he just brought out that has critical for the turn to go towards a creature. It definitely should have gone out of life. I think that's 100% the correct move. It also bean checks your opponent. Like, do you have the bean? If you have the bean's coming down right now.
Yeah, for sure. And
maybe the Dimension Support Trunks towards the battle card, but towards... You see, that's all mixed up. Now he's doing Dimension... He's doing the Trunks against against the leader when he could have just done the Goten versus the leader. It's a critical swing, and your opponent's a little bit more likely to take it. But yeah, he's gonna take the non-crit here, obviously. Snap.
He went down to 1, and
so he's gonna go down to 1.
I would have liked to see James. It might not end up mattering, in the large scope of the game. But I would like to just see James attack with the leader first before doing anything. If he was gonna make that attack, the Gohan wasn't on board yet, but it's just interesting to see. Does Andrew feel like he can take a life point of damage and go down to 1 earlier in the turn? There's a lot of different ways that James can approach that last turn, or what felt like the last turn that he had, because honestly, Andrew just untapped with the beers. I don't believe there's much game left to be played from here. It's interesting to see how, different players would approach certain situations, like a final turn like that one.
Double bean from James.
Oh, wow.
You could probably expect that's going to cause a pass from Andrew after the Beerus attack.
I mean, the Beerus attack will get rid of the rest of the hand, and I imagine the Piccolo might seal the deal. At least it's looking like that right now. Andrew just drawing cards to get options. He has a lot of blocks in his hand, so even if he ends up having to pass turn because of those sensu beans, he might still have a good chance of staying alive. And I think this one is the one that takes it home for Andrew. This is going to be...
He's still going to trade up to the sensu bean here.
And if he has a 5k here... Oh, wow!
Oh, and draws flute.
Oh, man.
And he needed a 5k there to live, but...
That's a bit devastating. Yeah, and Andrew reveals the hand at the end, and Andrew would have had to pass turn there, so a little bit unfortunate. Maybe James would have had last breath of hope there, but drawing a flute at the end makes it not enough combo power, and we're going to go to game 2.
Yep, that was a pretty well-fought game by both of them. You can see how Green does such a great job of facilitating the field and making sure that you don't get overwhelmed with weenies.
Yeah,
So-
if a lot of people are on this shoe control strategy, or just mono blue in general, that Piccolo, like you saw in game 1, so devastating. It wasn't even like James had a slow start and the Piccolo, got to leverage the advantage between turns. Just in a single turn cycle, the Piccolos ended up killing 4 or 5 cards on their own. When the second one came down, it almost felt impossible for James to win. So James did everything his deck does in that game. It just wasn't enough. And I think the green splash is definitely benefiting Andrew Calderon right now. It's probably been benefiting him the whole day as he's undefeated. So considering options, we can see we have the camera pointed at their sideboards right now, and it's just interesting to see how Andrew wants to approach this. Maybe he adds those 3-drop Gotenks just to have a little bit better early game against what James is doing, because the 15k really does matter in this case. Maybe he just stays big and stays with those Piccolos for board control. I'm interested to see what Annalisa does in this matchup. Does Andrew think that it's necessary, or just replaces it with something a little faster?
It is pretty slow. I feel like it's a card that I feel like takes its toll against much slower decks.
Sure.
Because it not only is a barrier, it just sits there on the board. So it's pretty much untouchable. It sits there. You don't even have to swing with it for it to actually have its impact on the game, which I think is one of the reasons why the card is so good. Maybe against an aggro deck is maybe too slow, or maybe he can just use it in a very aggressive fashion, which he did with the Piccolos. Because the Piccolos normally sit back. They normally just sit back, but they were attacking. He was putting pressure with them every single turn.
And Andrew had to, right? He was forced, because if he didn't attack with the Piccolos, just to do the effects, James Campbell had way too many 15Ks. So for Andrew to be able to survive without Sensu Bean, so definitely that's probably the main incentive as to why Andrew wanted to attack with those Piccolos. But yeah, they could just stay back and snipe cards all day. So and I'm starting to wonder, is it fair in a way to call this mono blue shoe deck a control deck? Is it really? Because they've been doing a lot of pressure moves, and it's still a control deck in the sense that it curves out with 5-drop beers, but a lot more aggressive than the I say old school, maybe a week ago, old school mono blue pure control decks. It just goes to show how fast the metagame evolves between one week and the other. They're just shuffling up for game 2. Will start very shortly, and it's going to come down to whether Andrew can draw those Sensu Beans. It's the most important card in not in all mirror matches, but definitely in this specific the way that James Campbell's deck is constructed. It matters a lot if Andrew draws them, and as in any other blue or blue-green matchup, you need the Gohans and the Flutes, and you want to see if Andrew starts with those. And you can see Andrew actually has a phenomenal start hand. He has 1-drop Gohan, and he has Flute, and if I'm not mistaken, he's going second if James Campbell decided to go first. So, if Andrew flips over double green, which, could be difficult with all his blue cards and some of the red GT Gokus, for example, he might not flip to green, but if he does, his turn 1 is going to be absolutely explosive. We're going to see how James deals with it, because he's not awakening on turn 1. Tapion 100% makes it so that the deck can only awaken on turn 2 or later unless it's attacked, and I think Andrew is going to take advantage of this and attack with 2 crit Gohans, the Gohan being the same one but being fluted back, and all he needs to do right now is simply hit 2 green.
All right, guys, we got a final top 8. So after looking at the bracket, it looks like we have 1 Hirudegarn blue-green, which is Alejandro Meta, 2 mono blue SS3 control, pure SS3 controls, 1 blue-green control, which is Andrew Calderon, 2 shoe control decks. So we got James Campbell and the other one we saw earlier, Jonathan Rodriguez. And then we have 1 Super Saiyan 3 Apes and 1 U7 Frieza. So a pretty versatile top 8. I mean, even though every single deck in top 8 is Super Saiyan 3 except for Hirudegarn and U7. 6 out of the 8 are Super Saiyan 3, but you have a lot of different cores here. You got a lot of different shells that you can play with the deck. So very, very cool, very, very diverse. I think it's a great top 8. You have very big names in here. You got Andrew Calderon, James Campbell, Gabriel Alonso. Shout out to him. He's our prime elite Patreon subscriber. He's been in and out with training with all of the PPG members. I was sitting down with him last night. We were going over the finalized build and making some touch-ups, and he's feeling real comfortable, just going in stride. He's in top 4 right now, top 8. And then we have Jonathan. Of course, he top 8'd the last super release, or won the last super release, playing Shu Aggro. And then, of course, we have Alejandro Mena in top 8 as well. So we got some pretty big names here. We got some pretty big names and pretty big decks.
And just to mention, Gabriel Alonso, one of our Patreon Prime members, and he hasn't been playing the game for very long. He's only been playing for a couple of months at most, and you get to see, the advantage of having the resources that PPG provides, and all the mentorship, and just how fast he's grown in the past couple of months. I mean, from just starting the game to top 8ing the release event, and now this event back to back. So he's showing his consistency as well. And
we actually had another Patreon, Jose. He made top 8 today, I believe. I think that's what he was shooting for. He was shooting for a top 8. Let me pull up the messages right quick. I think, he finished 5th place, and he got top 8. So he did really well. He's been showing progress. Both of them have been doing a lot of progress. And Jose, it's a little bit harder for him because he's not a local, so he can't really do a lot of face-to-face. But we do video sessions. So we'll sit here. We'll be in the PPG stream room. We'll be doing live training sessions so that you can actually feel like it's a lot more interactive. It's not just playing against somebody behind a screen. You can kind of go ahead and it's almost like playing somebody in real life because you can see their body language and stuff like that. So it lets you learn a little bit more and get you through those technical type of gameplay things that a lot of people just don't get when they play online, when they have no community or they have no local scene. And how do you get through that technical play? How do you get through bluffing? How do you get through body language? How do you get through all that?
You definitely learn all the different aspects of the game, not just the cards being put on the table, but also how players react to situations, what different players do, how matchups work out with those different players, giving the decks different philosophies or different tech choices. So definitely a lot of there's a lot of variance in the game, and it's always good to be prepared with everything. And sometimes just playing online or at a locals isn't enough, and having the mentorship of consistent top 8 players really gives you a different perspective on the game in general. And we see game 2 is off to a blistering start. Andrew, like I was mentioning before, he did not get that super explosive opening that he wanted, but it was decent enough. Forced out Gohan from James Campbell, and we see him on turn 4 with double green. So does he have the Piccolo? I think I see it in his hand. He's going to prioritize summoning that right now, getting rid of one Gohan with the Piccolo, attacking the other Gohan. I would not be surprised if he throws the Boo on top of his Piccolo if James doesn't negate this, and it would be kind of a greedy negate if he did so. So okay, so they're already in combo step, and there you see the reason why Andrew didn't come with the Boo. He wanted to flute it back to his hand, have a little bit of resource management later on in the game. Untaps one green for his green negates, and then blue and another green. So all his defensive options are open. You just see a full grip of cards. He might even have access to Scientist Fu on the next turn if he chooses to do that. One insane play that Andrew could have next turn is if James doesn't force Senzu Bean from Andrew defensively, Andrew could actually Scientist Fu into Beerus on the next turn. So it could be an absolutely massive turn for him next turn. James has to get cards out of Andrew Calderon's hand through aggressing him, or it's just going to be a blowout. I think this game much more so than the first game, because James Campbell does not have that immense amount of 15Ks that he had previously. He only has 2 at this point, and Andrew's more than capable of dealing with those. He proved that in game 1. So I want to see if James Campbell's side decking options help him out in this kind of game state. But if players are going to just trade playing Beerus from this point forward, it benefits Andrew significantly just because of that Piccolo on board. It's almost impossible for James to just play one bomb at a time.
And Andrew here with the preemptive Senzu Bean. He saw a leader attack. He didn't want to take it. He went with the Senzu Bean because he kind of foresaw James maybe playing a Trunks down. He did count his drop area. Probably thought that it was 3. That's enough. You know, Trunks only being 1 energy. You really want to go around that play. And then James, seeing the Senzu Bean, he plays the best card to play into a Senzu Bean, I want to say, in Beerus. Beerus has to be one of the best cards to really fight through a Senzu Bean. Not because of it connecting. You don't really care if it connects. You just want the auto to trigger. The auto is very, very powerful, especially against decks like this. And Andrew's going to look through his hand and see if he has anything that's actually worth ditching here. And it looks like he's going to have to ditch 2 cards, which when Beerus hits 2 cards, then you feel good. You feel like it's done its job. You know,
you're more than happy about that. And you see, Andrew actually prefers the defensive option over the offensive option. Instead of playing Scientist Fu into a Beerus, what he does instead is he manages his resources in such a way where he discards the Fu to the Beerus effect, sort of mitigating how many cards he's going to get rid of. And on top of that, now he can punish the Beerus attack by Senzu Bean and a Gohan is more than enough to deal with that. So now James is going to attack the creature, and he's just going to get massively punished by the onslaught of Gohans in Andrew's hand. And Andrew just played this masterfully, like setting himself up perfectly with this multiple Gohan and Senzu Bean play. And James Campbell, even after the Beerus attack, I think he's in a even like worse position than he was at the beginning of his turn. And Andrew's the one untapping.
Jeez, that was a huge turn for Andrew, even though he was on defensive. And James, unfortunately, it was just a really unfavorable situation for him, and he was able to play through it, thankfully. But it's just Andrew has so much, he has a card that just has an effect every single turn. Exactly. And it has barrier. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to, because Beerus, sure, James has a Beerus that has an effect every turn, but it doesn't.
And and as you see, the 6-drop Goku Dragon Fist is mainly for this matchup, but is it too slow is the question, because it has barrier, it can bounce back the Andrew Calderon's barrier threats, but and you see it in James Campbell's hand, but it just might be way too slow. He's fallen so far behind in just turn 4 and turn 5 because of this Piccolo. Even if the Piccolo gets put back in Andrew Calderon's hand, it might just be the point of no return here. So even the best defensive option or optimization against the green bombs that Andrew's presenting is not good enough, or at least that's what it seems like. And Andrew Calderon gets Beerus. Well, here's a taste of your own medicine. Another Beerus comes down against James Campbell, and it's just overwhelming at this point. And you can see the Andrew Calderon's list has a lot more, expensive cards, more 4-drops, more probably the same amount of 5-drops, but definitely maybe one more Fu here and there. And that matters a lot because of the Beerus. James Campbell has opted for significantly lower costed cards. You can see more copies of Cronoa, main decking Jajirobis. He's playing the shoe package, and those cards don't have a high energy cost. And so when paying for Beerus just takes so much with the effect. And obviously the force block at the very end. So James Campbell, this is going to be his Dragon Fist turn, and what is he going to do? He has to choose between a Piccolo hitting him. He still has 2 Gohans he has to deal with when Andrew untaps, if you choose him to defend them or not. His leader is not even under any type of pressure because he's still at 4. And the Beerus is still on board, so...
No, yeah, this is a overwhelming scenario for James Campbell. If he does play the Dragon Fist here, I can imagine he plays the Dragon Fist, attacks, probably puts the Piccolo back in Andrew's hand, and then tries to apply pressure on the Beerus because he has to. There's no way James can think to win this game if the Beerus stays on board.
I mean, as we've seen before, every single... it's a win condition. If Beerus survives the turn, untaps, and gets to use its effect a second time, the game is over, period, on the spot. So it has to be dealt with no matter what. And that is a massive play on Mufu, getting rid of James's best card. And is there anything he can do, honestly? Okay, so he does have a pretty good amount of retaliation here. He has the Banisher Food to get rid of the Beerus. He got rid of the Piccolo and went back to Andrew's hand. He's going to have to deal with it the next turn, but at least, he has to force Andrew to use the energy on the Piccolo, and we'll see where he goes with the Banisher Fu. He's going at the Gohan, so wanted to control the board a little bit, but the super combo is going to prevent that. And James Campbell, does he have enough? Now we're going to go back to Andrew. One of the more obvious plays is him just saying, oh, you couldn't deal with it last turn. Well, here it is again, Piccolo, but he's going to do Scientist Fu first. Just to see his options. And it's very possible that Andrew can go for game this turn even, depending on what James decides to take. Does he take the leader swing? Does he take the Gohan damage? What exactly does he want to prioritize? He has multiple Senzu Beans, so I believe this turn is not going to be the final turn of the game, but we are getting close to that. And I want to point out actually, there it is.
Combo killer, Anilaza.
So this is the first time we see this card on board, at least this round. Now every single attack that Andrew does is going to force James to... Well, it's almost mandatory to combo at this point. And when he does, Annalise is going to take one resource from his hand, mandatory discard every single... the first time that you combo on either player's turn. And James only has 4 cards, so it's going to be a very difficult choice. And he still has to deal with the Scientist Fu. And it'd be interesting to see if any of these attacks goes through. I think Andrew could just go in with a Gohan even through the Senzu Bean deficit. So I might have not thought about it before, but a definite possibility that the game could end this turn. Double Senzu.
Senzu is not a combo card here, so it's actually going to get around the Anilaza. Pretty good. Also, the negates are also going to stop the Anilaza too. So, double bean I think is probably the best thing that James probably could have asked for here. Yeah. And he's just going to go ahead and take the life instead of even comboing. I don't think he's going to combo at all. He's going to stray away from comboing at all just to avoid the Anilaza effect, which can be put you down through a lot of pressure, especially if you don't have the proper resources in hand. But if you land an Anilaza against a deck that has like maybe 5, 6, 7 cards in hand, it won't be as impactful. But once you start getting down to 4 cards in hand, 3 cards in hand, then yeah, that becomes something that just starts going in.
And what I was gonna mention before, I just want to point out the interaction with Mafuba and the Piccolo that destroys a card every single turn. So Mafuba actually makes the card stay on the field until the end of the turn when it comes back, but it comes back to the board, but doesn't get to impact the field on the following turn either. So the Dragon Fist came down, its attack was stopped the first turn by Mafuba, and then another turn by the Mafuba. And now, instead of Andrew Calderon having to deal with it through the effect of a different card, the Piccolo, if he had one on board, could just kill it outright. So in a sense, Mafuba's a small combo with the Piccolo. And we see here Beers came down. Andrew's choosing to do his discards. At this point, he just has such an abundance of resources. As long as he's careful, I don't think he's in too much danger, but he does not want to let unnecessary damage go through. So he's gonna pitch a negate first. Negating goes before the auto trigger, and then discard 2 pieces till the effect. And now we're going to see what James Campbell can do with the rest of these attacks. And yeah, Kami's Power Piccolo, I expect it to come down next turn, and it's just so overwhelmingly powerful. Another thing that Annalisa did is James Campbell has so few resources that I don't think he could go aggressive on Andrew that turn. So even if he had a last ditch effort to try and go all in, he just couldn't because of how much pressure on his hand the Annalisa was causing.
I see a Hidden Awakening KO in Andrew's hand.
Another incredible card that you get to splash because of this green choice Andrew made to add to his deck, and it's basically the trifecta: Annalisa, Piccolo, and here KO, probably out of his sideboard, just to clear up some of the one-drop draw card like Boo or Cronoas, and then kill the Gohans, which are so crucial in the matchup. So I believe that card came in from the sideboard just to deal with those, and it gives you resources when you're low. Like James Campbell could definitely use one of those at this point in time. So just this green deck just looks more powerful than the mono blue version outright. It focuses a lot more on card advantage, and it's more versatile because of its threats. So good on Andrew for choosing this in this kind of field where he expected a lot of mono blue decks.
Andrew, an innovator, of course, in his proper game, coming from a Magic background, very insightful mind. Him, along with some of the PBG pros, have been actually messing with a build like this. Me, Peter, and us have been really testing something like this, and it feels like Andrew finally came to a build that he felt very comfortable with. Yep. A lot of the PPG guys were back and forth between this and mono blue. They're both very strong decks in both different iterations of the deck, but very, very powerful. And Andrew obviously showing his skill as a card game player, kind of bringing this deck to light for the first time in public. So really, really interesting, and shout out to him for being an amazing deck builder and player. And we'll see exactly how well he does with this. Unfortunately, he will not be at GenCon, but Team PBG, who will be in attendance at GenCon, will try to consider this deck 100% as something that's a possible option.
And I mean, one of the reasons why, as I mentioned before, a lot of the PPG pros went with mono blue instead of this blue green splash is because it's just very difficult to deal with or accept that SS3, when on turn 1, when you discard for its effect to get 2 energy, it is random, and sometimes you could get messed up with your opening when you get 2 green when you want a blue, or if you get blue when you want a green. So that's not 100% guaranteed. So that's one of the reasons why maybe a lot of people stray away from multicolored decks when it comes to
especially
SS3.
when you're playing black cards with like Science
Exactly.
is Food. Now you're playing 3 colors
and
you're
GT
only
Goku as well.
And you're only asking and then you're only asking for the worst of the worst to happen. Like what happens if you flip over a black and a red?
Black and red, yeah, exactly.
You're just completely out.
Pass turn for a long time. And I'm just glad that Andrew found the ratio that he feels comfortable with. He found the ratio that where he believes that there is that possibility, and there are games where you're just gonna outright need to do an uphill climb if you end up getting that opening blue, that opening red, that opening black. And he said, okay, I'm gonna accept those games, and I'm just gonna accept that the power level that I get from these green cards is gonna carry me the rest of the way there, even when I lose some games to my own variants. And he made that choice, and it's paying off.
Yeah, I mean, the one of the problems that we saw with this deck as well, a lot of your cards are double green and double blue. But Andrew taking this game right here, obviously it looked flawless. He didn't really miss a beat, really.
I don't think he even sweat.
It almost, yeah, it looks like he had no problem, sweeping away the shoe deck. And that's not how a lot of the matches with this deck really go sometimes. You are playing technically 4-color deck. You are playing a 4-color deck, especially when you're playing Super Saiyan 3 leader. You're at the mercy of variance. You're just at the mercy of what's in your life. And, sometimes you got to take that risk for the high power level of some of the cards that you're playing.
I mean, a perfect example, in that game, Andrew could have actually had an even better start where if he had flipped 2 green, he could have gone completely off with a Gohan, Flute Gohan, awaken himself turn 1. He wasn't able to. He only got 1 green and then a blue, which is not the worst, but it wasn't even the most optimal, and he still, managed to play a game that looked near flawless. And it's like I said, he just accepts that the variance is there, but he feels that the green cards, and especially, I'm sure he was super glad to have multiple Piccolos in that game 1. So congratulations to him, and he's going to be part of the top 4.
Yeah, we're going to go and see exactly how the rest of the bracket is shaping up. We definitely do have a stacked top 8 here at Pro Play Games. We're going to go double check exactly how the rest of the top 8 matches are going, and we're going to get that top 4 feature match right away. Thank you guys again for watching. We'll be right back.